The new home collapse continues, and they don't want you to know as they continue to cover up information. And don't forget, you guys, on this channel, we use multiple data providers to triangulate exactly what's going on in the housing market under the hood. And also don't forget, there's two different worlds in the housing market right now. There's existing homes and there's new homes. And today we're going to go over new homes, and we're going to look at Fred economic data. And I'm also going to take you guys underneath the hood, and I'm going to access MLS to show you guys what's happening in a subdivision that we have been covering on this channel called Harrington Trails. That was one of the first subdivisions I went to, and I showed you guys the census data, the MLS data, and then I drove around that neighborhood and I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to show you guys that they have 2 to 3 times more homes than what's actually listed on MLS. Now, fast forward to today, that same subdivision has an overabundance of new homes, but the problem is some of those recent owners are now trying to sell, and they're quickly and unfortunately finding out that in order for them to sell, they have to beat the builders. Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers, and when I'm done with this, I'm going to go back into work on the free courses that we're making right now to help you guys fight, potentially, whether it's right now or in the future, overassessment property tax. In my own local housing market, the builders are offering 0% rates. Again, in my housing market, builders are offering 0% rates, and they're still cutting the prices on the properties by over $100,000. This video is going to be a good one. When I'm going over this data, I'm also going to be looking at the trends for new construction to see if any of these trends are recessionary indicators, and I think you're actually going to be really surprised what you see here. So let's start with permits. Now, first of all, you guys, this came out August 23rd. Permits to build is at 1.4 million units right now. Over the last 10 years, that's a very healthy amount, but notice as well, you guys, the recent trend is going down. Now, this is what's interesting. When we look at when recessions occurred, typically, not all of the time, but typically what you'll see is you'll see permits start going down, and then we go into recession. And then when we end recession, permits go up. And you can see that with those red arrows. Those red arrows means that permits are going down into the recession. And the green arrow represents that after the recession, permits actually skyrocket upward. Now, the interesting thing is again, take a look at the trajectory right now. The trajectory right now is going down, which would potentially mean we're either in recession or it's possible recession is right around the corner. Let's move on. As far as starts, we're sitting at 1.23 million starts. So again, over the last 10 years, that's a very healthy range to be in. But when we look at the trajectory of the current trend of these starts, you can see that it is clearly going down. And when we go back into the 1960s, you guys can actually see, not every time, so this is not a perfect indicator, but often you're going to start seeing starts go down and then we go into recession. So the fact that starts are going down right now is a potential recessionary indicator. And just like permits, after the recession, this stuff like skyrockets upward. So it's a roller coaster ride with these builders. Now, this next data set, you guys, is absolutely crazy. Now, when I talked to Logan, and I appreciated the point he made on our channel here, which was that one of the reasons why we've stayed out of recession is because there's so much construction going on for building. And it's actually very interesting because this data that I'm about to show you actually supports his hypothesis. Now, when we look at total units under construction, never been this high. But I want you guys to know this includes both SFRs and 5 units or more, which is both important to the housing market and the rental market. But right now we're at 1.53 million units under construction. So there's a lot of jobs right there. But again, you guys, look at the trajectory. Now, this may be the most important recessionary indicator of all the data sets I'm about to show you, because normally, again, going back to the 1970s, when this goes down, when construction goes down, it leads us right into recession pretty much every single time. Now, first of all, look to the right. The trajectory is going down. Look at the GFC. the trajectory is going down right into the recession. The only time it didn't really happen was the dot-com bubble. But look at the 1990s. Again, it goes down into recession. You see that in the 70s and you see that in the 80s. So it's very interesting, right? I'm not saying that this is a perfect indicator, but I am saying it's an additional indicator that spells trouble under the hood. Don't forget this. They are 100% underreporting this data. When we separate out SFRs, take a look at where we're at with the 5 units or more. And again, this is good because we need rent to go down more, obviously, because it's sky high right now. But take a look, you guys. Again, the trajectory is going downward, and like the other data set that we went over, it goes down into recession. We're sitting at 870,000 units. That's a ton of units under construction. Depending on how quickly that inventory hits the market and depending how concentrated it is, because usually it's very concentrated, it's not spread out through the nation, you will see rents softening. But it depends again on the market. So pay attention to yours. Now, also interesting, when we just look at single family residences, we're at 653,000 under construction. That's pretty decent. Now, again, pointing out the trajectory, you see that downward trajectory. When it goes down, it often leads into recession. You see that during the GFC. Again, you don't really see that in the dot-com bubble. You kind of have these little decreases right here in the middle there. You see that 2 decreases, but we didn't go into recession. They weren't big decreases, but every other decrease going back to the 1970s, every one led to recession. Isn't that very interesting, guys? But regardless, they are still out there building like crazy. One thing that new construction has had over existing homes, other than the crazy incentives, is supply and inventory. And generally when supply is over 6 months, that's when a lot of downward pressure put on prices. These builders have to give you insane incentives just to get you to agree to purchase these houses. And the reason that is, they pulled so much demand for it, and the little bit of demand that's left, they can't afford the housing market because it's so out of whack. But regardless, you guys, when we look at supply, we've been well over 6 months for over 2 years, now sitting at 7.5 months. Now that trajectory has gone down recently, probably a result of the slowing down of new home construction. And I'm gonna say, guys, we don't necessarily want that to slow down. We want it to continue to increase, and we want the quality of construction to be good. Now, regardless, this is very interesting. Unlike the other data that we went over, this actually skyrockets into recession. Take a look, you guys. You guys can see, again, going back to the GFC, to the 1990s, 70s, and 80s, even in the mid-60s, this goes up. In fact, it skyrockets when we start recession. So again, if you go to where we're at right now, you can see that this is actually, it started to go up, but recently it started to go back down, which would kind of demonstrate that we're not quite, just looking at this data set, we're not quite in recession yet. But the good thing is, guys, is the inventory is sitting. 7.5 months is a lot of inventory. Before we look at prices, understand how you really find a great deal. You gotta go hyper local into the subdivision. And the problem with new homes, guys, is a lot of times, and I'll show you that here in a minute, they don't even report the sales data. So it's a lot more difficult to do that in new homes because they have a monopoly on the transaction and they are under-regulated. So there is a massive lack of transparency, and you see it as a realtor when you access MLS data and they hide it. They don't even report it. And also, you guys, remember, what we're about to review, the median, it's not true raw median. They have turned median into a proprietary index. And how they've done that is they've changed the pricing buckets to hide the price decline. So don't worry, after we're done going over this, I'm going to show you actual price decline. Because again, unfortunately, and this is sad and I don't like it, we can't trust this data because they revise it to manipulate the narrative. It is up over the last 2 months, and it's gone up a decent amount. You guys can see that on the right there. So according to the new way they're calculating median, again, this is the new way. I think they've been calculating this for what, 4 months? And they went back 3 years to change all of this. That's why I said BS right there. But regardless, we're sitting at 429,800. And don't forget this, you guys, the amount of incentives that they're offering, according to Lennar, at least in Texas, is over $50,000. That's just rate buy down incentives. They're not reporting that. Seller concessions as is required. They're not doing that. In order to keep these prices stable, they commit fraud. they commit fraud. If they know they're supposed to do seller concessions and they're not, to keep the value supported, I mean, maybe that's not fraud, but it certainly feels like it. Here's my local map of Lennar, and you guys can see there are 2 properties that have over $100,000 in price cuts. But don't forget, you guys, you still have to do a subdivision analysis because some of those price cuts aren't true price cuts. The only way to really understand whether or not what you see on the screen right there is a true price cut is to do your analysis. It's very, very simple math, you guys. All you have to do is use simple math. But I thought it was interesting. Again, just Lennar, there's multiple home builders in my area, but just Lennar is reporting, and I can guarantee you guys there's probably double the amount, if not triple. But they're saying they have about 252 homes, 40 different communities, and they are slashing the prices on their houses like crazy. And I can confirm that most of those are real price cuts by doing what, guys? Subdivision analysis and reviewing comps. Lennar is offering 0% interest rates because they can't get enough people. There's not enough demand to go buy those houses. So they have to offer ridiculously below market interest rates, which again, why is there no seller concessions? But take a look at this, you guys. Amazing promotional loan program. The first year is a 0.99%. Second year is 1.99. Third year is 2.99, and it maxes out. This sucker maxes out at a fixed rate of 3.99%. And I highlighted on the bottom there, that is through Lennar Mortgage. So if you're in real estate and you understand RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Procedure Act, can you explain to me how's that not steering? Lennar is saying we will give you a 0% rate if you go, and I'm going to steer you now if you go to them. If you don't go to them, we're not going to give you a 0% rate. Do y'all see the problem here? And my question is, and I really don't understand this, why isn't the CFPB, the FTC, why is nobody enforcing the law? What we're going to do is a little bit of a mini case study on a subdivision that I've been tracking, again called Harrington Trails. Now, first of all, let me show you what this looks like on MLS. And you guys can see, again, I have drawn around the subdivision because remember, you got to go subdivision. It's too noisy. You have to filter down to subdivision, right? And then after you filter down your subdivision, add filters to the comparables so you can narrow in on wedge, cash flow, and things like that. Don't get overwhelmed by looking at every single comp. Regardless, you guys, that's the subdivision I've been tracking. That's a subdivision that I found 2 to 3 times more homes than when was actually listed on MLS. But right now on MLS, you guys can see on the upper left, it is saying as far as active listings that are available through MLS only is 68. And again, you guys, I could probably go there and count 3 times that amount. But this is what I want to show you. Of those 68 active listings, roughly about 16 of those listings, as you can see here, are from existing homeowners that want to sell their house. Have they owned their house for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, like I've been saying that we probably should do? No, they haven't. They've only owned their house for 1, 2, 3 years. And you guys, here's the thing, and I'm about to show you this. There's 16 existing home sales. Those people that are selling those existing homes have to now compete with the builder, and the builder's offering a new house at a super low interest rate with massive price cuts. So it's impossible for a lot of these people to compete. But again, you guys, you see here, and I want you guys to pay attention. I've started at the top and I've started at the bottom to show you. They're trying to get $124 to $171 a square foot. But take a look at this. When I categorize all 68 listings by the price per square foot, you guys can see that the first 3 here are brand new homes selling for $115, $115, and then $120. I put an arrow next to an old comparable. I've highlighted $124 a square foot. But if you go up 2 listings to where I put an arrow next to new, that's almost the same house. It's a brand new house, probably comes with insane, ridiculous buying incentives, and it's being sold for $122.61 a square foot. So let me ask you, why would anyone want to buy a used house at a higher interest rate, probably no incentives, with a higher payment? It doesn't make sense. It's used, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense. But it gets even worse. When I go in and I start accessing some of these existing homes to see what condition they're in, and guys, the way I do that is I go to archive. So if you have access to MLS, go to the archive and you can see the history of that listing to figure out what's going on. Now, the first thing that I notice is exactly what I've been telling you guys. They're not reporting a ton of sales data on MLS. You see right here that this home, it's showing that the first time it was listed April 30th of 2024, but that's impossible because there's someone living in it right now. And again, what I'm showing you here is even though they have a monopoly over this system, even though they're getting taxpayer and government incentives, they're not being honest with the public. They're not being honest with the agents. They're not being honest with MLS. This property does not allow me to see what it was originally purchased for. Now, when I go to this next listing, take a look at this, you guys. This person purchased this property 2 years ago for $247,500. 2 years ago. I'm sorry, guys, less than 2 years ago. Now they tried to list it 1 year later at $255,000. They couldn't sell it. They took it off the market, decided to list it again at $10,000 higher. I don't think they understand how this works. Remember, they're competing against the builder. But what I really want you to understand is if they bought it for $247,000, look at the top left at 8%, the cost to sell that house, 6% realtors, 2% for taxes and insurance would be $21,200. What you see here is someone that purchased in 2022, and even though if they sold it for $265,000, which they haven't, by the way, they're still upside down. They can't afford the fees to sell their house. And so again, let me ask you, if it's between this house and a brand new house, why would I want a used house with a higher payment and a higher price with probably no incentives? Because again, they cannot afford to give incentives because all of their equity is going to the fees to the agents. So they're stuck. And I can almost guarantee you they probably didn't plan on leaving in a year. What do you guys think? Another thing that's crazy is I found out that more than likely the builder turned a tremendous amount of those properties in Harrington Trails into rentals. And the crazy thing about this is the rentals are not working, and those same people that converted these houses in Harrington Trails to rentals are now trying to sell the rentals because they're not working, probably because property tax. Take a look, you guys. Now, originally this was rented, okay, for almost $2,300 back in June 1st of 2023, but this property was listed for sale less than 1 year later, so it wasn't even a full 1 year term. And this person already wants to sell their house for $299,000. In other words, you guys, and again, this is my market. Every market is different. You can't use my strategies in my market in a place like Anaheim, California. Every market is unique, but the math, you guys, is the same. And what we see here is we see the math is not working as it pertains to single-family residential rentals. In other words, be very extremely cautious. And what I do when I'm looking at real estate is I use the math. If we use the math, we are in a much safer situation. But I hope you guys understood what I showed you. I showed you a few red flags when it comes to purchasing new construction. And again, we didn't even go over quality of construction. We didn't even go over the arbitration agreements. We didn't go over a lot of things. But what we did go over is what it looks like when people's plans fail. What happens is they try to sell their house, but they can't because the builder will undercut them every single time. Other than that, guys, I hope you guys learned something here. Comment below. Let me know what else you guys want to learn. Let me know what you found helpful in this video. Don't forget to have a free home buying course. I will have that property tax course up for free very, very soon. My thank you to you. And if you guys are out there investing in real estate, you guys already know I wish you luck, and I hope you win.